Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 4Wrestle podcast. I'm your host, King Axel, aka Justin here, and tonight I have the counterpart of the iconic Facebook Ether duo here, the important one, Mr. Mayhem. Welcome to the show here.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the time that you've given me.
Yeah, last 2 weeks ago, we had Dr. Greg, your best friend, on the podcast. So my first question is, how did you met Dr. Quack?
Actually, I was in wrestling training in Texas with a guy named the Necro Butcher who was training us. And a guy named Jeremiah Kalp shows up, who's Dr. Quack, to start training. And I'd been there a few months. So we met at Butcher and Associates, as it was called.
Nice. My next question is, how did you ever get started into the professional wrestling? Like, how did you ever came into this business?
Well, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I started watching at 5 years old in the 70s.
Wow.
And when I got out of high school, I was in Oregon, where I'm from, and Roddy Piper opened a wrestling school with him and Playboy Buddy Rose.
Wow.
Now, I went to the school, and it only opened for a couple of weeks, and then Roddy Piper got called back to the WWF, and Playboy Buddy Rose didn't want to run the wrestling school, so they refunded the money, and which was nice of them. And then 1999, I get back from Korea, and that's when I find Necro Butcher's school and started training in June or July of 1999, and that's how my wrestling career started.
Wow. I mean, in 1999, I wasn't even born yet, so.
Wow.
My next question is, do you have a favorite match in your overall career? What you can say, hey, I want to see this 5 or 10 times more than even other matches?
There's a few. I had a really good 27-minute cage match with a guy named Voodoo the Executioner, who's now known as Andrew Abel Jackson. He works for Booker T's league, Realities of Wrestling.
Wow.
He was brand new in the business, and I helped get him his big start. In fact, he showed that match to Booker T, and that's how he got in with Booker T. There's a triple threat cage match. Me and Bobby Too Bad and a guy named Hot Stuff Hernandez did a 22-minute cage match that was really, really good. I did a triple threat with Bobby Too Bad and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. We went 14 minutes. That was a good one.
You actually wrestled against Hacksaw Jim Duggan?
I have worked him 3 times.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
And then me and Bobby Too Bad did a 45-minute Fans Bring the Weapons Iron Man match.
I love some chaos style around here.
So those were all the ones I'd like to see again.
Yeah, so my next question is, I mostly here on the podcast talked about the European independent scene, mostly known as Catch as Catch pro wrestling here. When you're going to see it on your eyes, what's the difference between the European indie scene and the American indie scene over in USA?
Well, 1, it's smaller, but 2, it's actually better because I've seen some catch wrestling before. I had watched some of the old Otto Wunz matches, and Grizzly's Haystacks. He was known as PN News over here in the United States. So I've seen some European wrestling. It's better from the standpoint of they put more believability into it and they care less about their image. It's important to them, but they care more about the product and less about getting themselves over. And because it's smaller, they care more about each other. So that's the big thing. Everybody here in the Indies, everybody wants to be a wrestler on the indie circuit in the U.S. In Europe, it's seen more as if I'm able to be in the wrestling world, then I'm doing my part to help carry the tradition. And it's not seen that way in the United States.
Okay, that's really a hot take on it. My next question is, what is your opinion on my favorite part of the wrestling community, the IWC?
Not a fan. Personally, I'm not a fan of the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. As we've said in the Dr. Quack podcast, there are three things that help wrestling and hurt wrestling at the same time. And one of them is the internets. There are too many people that have killed kayfabe, too many people that want to see the triple jump moonsault off the house onto the broken glass and barbed wire. So blow-off matches don't exist anymore. You can't have a match with one chair shot to end a match anymore. You know, everything has to be overdone, and all the smart marks out there that think they know how the business works and they crap all over it, that pretend they're part of the internet wrestling community, I'm not a fan. I wish the internet wrestling community would mysteriously go away and never be heard from again.
See, that's an opinion of a veteran here. So after you retired from your professional wrestling career, you started to being in Facebook more active. So my first question on the Facebook era is, how did it come together with the Dr. Quack podcast itself? Was it your idea or Dr. Quack's idea?
It was Dr. Quack's idea. I actually retired from the ring in 2014. My knees started giving out. Yeah, I started wrestling in '99 at 27 years old.
Wow.
I was in my mid 40s when I had to hang it up. So my knees started to give out. So I kind of accepted the fact and I'm 6'4" in my bare feet, 1.93 m for your European fans. I'm 1.93 m in my bare feet. I'm too tall to be a manager. I'm too tall to be a referee. I'm too tall to be a ring announcer because you don't want to dwarf the talent. You know, that's important. You can't look bigger than your talent. So I kind of accepted the fact that my wrestling time in the ring was over. And I like booking, I like storytelling, but on the indie circuit, they don't pay people to do that. They don't want people to come in, even if they'll do it for free, they'd rather do it themselves. So I accepted that I was kind of done, and Dr. Quack moved down here to Texas for a while, and he stayed with me, and he actually introduced me to Voice of Honor.
Because, yeah, that's my next question here. How did you came into the e-fetting?
Yeah, because Quack introduced me to VOH through Timmy Renz, through Landfill, and they were looking for people to give them honest feedback on their promos. They didn't want promo artists all patting each other on the back saying, hey, good job, great promo. They weren't learning anything. So Landfill asked me and Dr. Quack to watch a match or watch a show and give honest feedback. And from there, they liked it, so they asked us to keep doing it and turn it into a show, because we were just doing Dr. Quack podcast, just reviewing pay-per-views, because he had been doing that several years before. I had never been involved in a podcast prior. So we started reviewing VOH, Voice of Honor promo shows on the auspice and precipice that we were trying to teach everybody how to be better promo artists.
That's true. I can say this out of the honest opinion. If you don't know, I'm an e-fetter too, just like Mr. Mayhem, Dr. Quack, and etc. That's why I know those peoples.
Yeah. But our whole goal was, you know, if you guys are trying to get, you're an exception to the rule, like Mad Dog and a few others that are actually workers in the professional wrestling world. Most of these guys, this is their only way they can live their dream of being involved in the wrestling world. So why not have somebody who's willing to come in and help train them and do something better for free. In the wrestling world here in the indie circuit, big name talent will go around and do seminars, teach them a few things, teach them how to bump. I'm sure there probably is some similar thing in Europe, but nobody does that for the EFED world. So we're not asking for money. We just tried to go around and help people out. If you wanted an opinion and you wanted to learn, I was always there and available.
That's true. My next question is, September 15th was the birth of Heart and Soul Promotion. So how did you came with the idea of building Heart and Soul Promotion? So how was the story behind this?
Well, we were doing Voice of Honor, our normal thing, and there was a severe disagreement between ourselves, me and Dr. Quack, and the management of Voice of Honor. I'm not going to get into all the details, keep that dirty laundry put away, but basically there was a falling out, and we were let's back up a little. We were supposed to help with the Catalyst division, which is one of the junior divisions of VOH, Voice of Honor, and they decided to not go with us, even though we were writing the shows. They went a different direction, so we stopped doing VOH writing and just were doing the podcast. Then we get into the Inferno version. Well, that's where the big fallout happened, and we decided that we still wanted to be involved, so we were going to create our own and try and eliminate some of the things we saw in Voice of Honor that we didn't like. Some of the things like the judging system. We didn't like the whole hearing that it was just 3 votes to 0, but it was close. Well, a clean sweep doesn't sound close. So we tried to come up with a system that we liked, and we were willing to put it forward. We weren't looking to compete against anybody. We just wanted to have our own thing and see how it worked. And so far it has, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Next show is, as I heard, September 30th, the Year Awards show, where you have a fatal five-way to determine the champion of champions match. Can you say more details about it to the watchers out here from 4Wrestle?
Sure. So we had several categories, and we let the locker room vote on these different categories, like promo artist of the year, match of the year, things like that. They couldn't nominate themselves, so we tried to keep it as clean as we can. But the champion of champions match, anybody who held a title in Heart and Soul Promotions was invited. It was an invitational only. Now, Storyteller chose not to compete, and that was his choice. But we have all people who have held a title for some period of time in Heart and Souls are competing in a match that will be judged, and the winner will be declared the champion of champions and will actually get a trophy for that.
Wow. Wow, that sounds something good. But next up, it is my favorite category here. It's the fatal four-way question. 4 rapid fire questions here that I'm going to tell you, and you need to answer them quickly as possible. First question. Favorite wrestler?
Favorite wrestler, Arn Anderson and Rip the Crippler Oliver.
Favorite wrestler in the new time?
Favorite wrestler of the new time, Kevin Owens.
Most overhyped finisher of all time.
The DDT.
And last one.
And I'll caveat that before you go into it. The DDT, when Jake the Snake Roberts did it, it meant something. Now everybody does it to the point of it's not a finisher anymore. That's why I say that.
All right. Last one. Most underrated wrestler of right now.
Most underrated wrestler, probably Sami Zayn.
Ooh.
Sami Zayn is known for his mouth. He's not always known for his working, but Sami Zayn can really work. The WWE has kind of stunted some of his work.
All right. That's it for rapid fire questions here. So my next question is always overall here. So What is your current take on the WWE situation? What's going on right now with Triple H now under the power of Vince McMahon?
Well, for the longest time, me and Dr. Quack would put over on our previews and reviews, which you've been involved in some of the previews of our current pay-per-views, that we always say Vince McMahon has been in his own way for the last couple of years. He's starting to get older. He's not really growing. He wasn't really growing with the times. Some of the people he was getting rid of, everybody's like, why did he do that? There was so much there. Well, watching what they have now, there's a lot to fix, and they're doing it slowly, but I like the direction WWE is going right now. They're getting better. They're doing a better job with the storyline of the bloodline of Sami Zayn's going to come out of this thing probably the next world champion. He's going to be such a huge babyface when they turn on him. He's going to be the one to take the title off Roman Reigns. I see that coming about WrestleMania. There's your spoiler alert. That's what I see, because the last reaction of when they tore the bloodline shirt off of him, how much the crowd was into that, and then the honorary Uce. Sami Zayn is getting over right now in the way that he should. I see him being that person that they finally figured out who's going to take it off Roman Reigns, and I think it'll be Sami Zayn. So I like the direction they're going. They're slowing things down. They're learning to rebuild characters, and they're going with the best parts of the Attitude Era. They're not doing so much of the sexual storylines, but more hard-hitting, more action-packed matches, less hokey stuff. Like, even though they still aren't doing the best with Shayna Baszler, at least Shayna Baszler got to look tough for a while, which she should look tough a whole lot more. So they're getting a lot better. You can see that things are going in the right direction.
That's true. That's true. One last question here. We saw, at least I saw, most of the Dr. Quack episodes has a certain item that you're gonna use. Yes. And that is the spray.
The spray, yes.
Can you tell us about the story behind the complete spray situation?
Sure.
How does it came alive?
Well, it was in June of 2001 is when I first started using the spray. I was getting ready to win the Texas All-Star Wrestling Heavyweight title. I've been in the business less than 2 years, and I'm getting ready to win a heavyweight title. Now, for really quick, Texas All-Star Wrestling started out in Texas in 1994. They're still in business today.
Wow.
So they're one of the longest running independent wrestling companies around. And they were putting the title on me. So I started coming out with spraying air freshener because my character was from New York City. And I would tell people that everybody in Texas smelled like beer and nachos, and it was making me sick. So I sprayed them with air freshener. Now, I didn't spray, obviously, in their face or anything. I kept it down, spray their feet so, I wouldn't hurt anybody. But that's where that started out. And I would use two smells that didn't go together. The first example is vanilla and lemon. Those don't go together. And everybody thinks I got it from Gorgeous George. I stole it from Rick Martel, the model, from Aragon. Wow. So I would spray air freshener, and I would point the air freshener at wrestlers who want to charge me, and they would stop. So I made the can of air freshener a feared weapon. And I would do things like I would spray the referee before he touched me so that he could check for stuff. So I would just carry it on that way. Or like they'd hand me the microphone, and I'd spray air freshener on the microphone before I cut a promo. Because everything smelled like beer and nachos in Texas. So that's the story I went with.
Wow.
And I kept it alive when I moved up to Colorado, when the important one got a name, the gold standard Michael Madoff. And I kept the air freshener spraying there. I used it when I was in Amish country. I I played an Amish character, and I speak just enough German, and I have just enough of a German accent that I could pretend to be Amish. Because a lot of people don't realize people think the Amish are English, and they're not. They're a German community. Their churches are taught in German. Their schools are taught in German.
Yeah, that's true. If you pay attention to the history lessons, children, then you definitely know. Otherwise, you can call Mr. Mayhem for it.
There you go. But yeah, they call the people they don't like the English. And the reason they shave their mustache and grow a beard is because British soldiers had mustaches and German soldiers had mustaches, and they were trying to be the opposite of that. That's why they don't wear mustaches.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for today, Mr. Mayhem. Thank you for this interview today. That was one hell of an interview here. Tomorrow, make sure to tune in for Catch's Catch, where I'm reviewing GWF Battlefield. I'm your host, and we will see you all next time on the podcast. See you all then.